This PC I have right here is tiny. This is the computer I use every day. It has a 2060 in it. It's pretty great. And just to show you how small this is, that is a PlayStation 5. It's like twice as tall, maybe. It is a behemoth relative to this little PC. And that's because normally whenever computers, they go on to smaller and smaller architecture, you maybe heard the word 14 nanometer or 7 nanometer. That allows not only more power, but also you can fit that power into smaller packages. Now, unfortunately, after years and years of better efficiency, this current generation, we've decided to make everything big again for whatever reason. So, for me to be able to get the latest and greatest, for me to be able to step up and grab something better than what I have in this computer, I have to go to a massive 3080. And by massive, I mean massive. This thing is way bigger than just the PC. Now that 3080 I showed off, you probably can't even get your hands on it now. So I'm not going to be talking about that. This video is of course all about the 2060, which hopefully if you can't get new, you can get used and what you can expect from that. So let's pretend it's January 2019. You just got the card. Let's go down the list of games available. This is Battlefield 5. I will go ahead and show off what visual settings we're going to go ahead and run with. I'm using a 1080p monitor, okay? Because I want to get that high frame rate gaming. You should definitely be able to have lower frame rate at a higher resolution. Pretty much I changed the field of view and I left everything else just at ultra. We're playing in DX12 and ultra, and that's really all you need to know for that. But let's actually, see how that runs. So I will go ahead and do a war story, which is just campaign, and we'll see how that goes. We'll play on medium. I'm just going to try to run through this and show off how awesome this brand new technology is. We're living in the year 2019. It's January, 20th. You just picked up your new 2060 RTX series. It's crazy. Let's see what we can actually do with this. Now, something to keep in mind while we're going through this and you're taking in all the sights and seeing just how far this graphics card can push everything is that with the introduction of the RTX line, it kind of bumped everything around relative to the GTX. So you're really price point wise on the 1070 going to the 1060, not the 1070 to 2070, which you might expect. These new cards did cost quite a bit more to be able to afford, and to be fair, they did perform a little bit better, but it's not really the naming scheme doesn't really follow what we've been going off of before. And with the 2060 right now, you see we're hovering around 90 to 100 FPS just going through. I'm not doing like an in-depth benchmark or anything like that, but you can see high 80s, low 90s. I'm getting rocket shot at me. Like, it's running pretty well. Okay, I would definitely be fine with this. We're playing on ultra as well on our high FPS monitor, so we could probably bump the settings down a tiny bit and jump into some multiplayer and have just a pretty good time. I mean, assuming you like this game. If you don't like Battlefield, no matter what the settings are, you're probably not gonna have a great time. But assuming you do like the game, like the lowest I've seen it dip so far, again, I'm not actually like doing a proper benchmark, the lowest I've seen is about 80. So I would say that is a good time. This is steady. I'm not getting a bunch of hitches or like anything weird. Like, this is all just very smooth. It's past a certain point to where it's not really any like jarring, noticeable, stuttery mess. And now I'm going to go ahead and show you what happens with the power of RT cores. What can we do with ray tracing? So all we do is we go into video, we go to DXR enabled. So DirectX ray tracing improves the quality of reflections. This is the first release of the DXR feature in Battlefield 5. So if we turn this on, it will ask us to restart a game. So I will do that. And I'm leaving everything else exactly the same. So you saw it was anywhere from 80 to 100 FPS, very consistent. And then whenever we turn this on, we'll see what happens. Now here we are with the power of DXR. Here's ray tracing. And it doesn't really look any better in the Jeep. We already hit 40 FPS. So as you can see, I mean, it's cut it down at least in half, if not more. 31 FPS is the low that I've seen. Again, not, oh my God, 25, 23, 21, 18 FPS. So as you can tell, there's like a reason why people were not widely adopting this new technology, okay? This is a big stuttery mess. Now I am recording at the same time, okay? So I will actually talk about the numbers that I'm going to benchmark in this game and compare those relative to like the recording. I'm not going to go off of the recording stuff, but as you can see, this, I would not play multiplayer with this on. This is not a great time. My CPU is definitely not bottlenecking me. This is an i9 9900K, okay? Like, this is a pretty good CPU. We definitely aren't worried about that, but I don't even feel like I have to play any more of this to get across the point that less than 30 FPS is absolutely not ideal. So I won't play anymore. Now, I didn't play for a terribly long time, but I don't really think I needed to. I think the results after playing for just a few minutes kind of tells the whole picture as is. So the frame rates with RTX on, even at 1080p, which is all that I did on this, are just not great. And keep in mind, this is how it runs in 2021. I'm sure it was worse in 2019. So after playing single player for, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes, these are the average FPSs. So this right here is playing it on ultra with RTX off. Okay, this is my 9900K, my 2060. I got 32 gigs of RAM. Those are the important things. And look at the stutter. There's like no stuttering, all smooth, literally 0% low FPS, so little stutter. And you can see the consistency in the FPS. It averaged about 90 frames per second, which is really nice. This runs totally fine, very happy with it. I probably wouldn't even tweak any settings unless maybe I really just wanted a really high frame rate, but definitely playing on single player, that's totally fine. But then if we swap over to RTX on, it gets so stuttery. Look at this. Smooth. This tool, by the way, Cap Frame X. Check it out if you're interested in looking at any of these numbers on your own. It's really good. But anyway, look. Smooth FPS, 54%. Low FPS, 44%. It says for 80 seconds of my run that I did, which, again, it was only a few minutes. So that's a significant portion. And then it was a little stuttery. And again, the average FPS, about 38. Way lower than this, almost a third turning that on. But NVIDIA does have a solution to try to fix this, and that is known as DLSS, which kind of runs the game at a lower resolution and then uses this special technique to clean it up and make it look like it's running at a higher resolution. That's the very, very dumbed down version of what this technology is. And I'm going to show you that because that's a feature that you can use whenever you pick up a 2060. All you got to do, go into video, go to advanced, and NVIDIA DLSS on. NVIDIA DLSS uses deep learning to improve game performance while maintaining visual quality. Requires an RTX graphics card, and you gotta have DXR on. Okay, so we're gonna leave everything else the exact same and see how this goes. And here we are running it with DXR and DLSS, and you can see the frame rates are dramatically better than just running it with DXR on. We are going to be able to show off some of the ray tracing stuff, but this should be at some sort of visual loss. Now, how big that you perceive that visual loss is going to vary person to person and game to game. But in this game, I mean, it doesn't look dramatically different or anything like that. And we do still have DXR on, and it's running significant. This guy's running. It's running significantly better, and you can see that we do still have the ray tracing stuff on. I mean, I can show you that everything's still going. Look, we got DXR and we have DLSS, and that is kind of the superpower technology. It's the craziness of being able to run a game at a lower resolution and then crank it up and use the deep learning style stuff, and that smooths out. But that very well may not happen for every game. I personally don't think in this title that it looks awful or anything like that. I mean, there's so much stuff going on that I think it kind of hides everything very well, whatever imperfections that you would be getting from playing this at a lower resolution. But I mean, it's running pretty good. Now, comparing rasterized footage versus DLSS is not a rabbit hole I want to jump into in this video. There are plenty of other good videos out there that go more in depth than that, but I am really quickly going to show you a side-by-side with ray tracing on, DLSS on versus DLSS off in this side-by-side comparison. This is 1-to-1. I haven't cropped in or done anything, but I have made a split in the screen to show you the difference between it being on and off in the same video going on. It's just that beginning opening sequence, so everything should be the same. But then if I go ahead and jump to a zoomed in portion, this is 4 times zoomed, so this is like 720p, and you can see the difference in image quality between these two. There's definitely a difference with the way that the water is, which is weird because they both have ray tracing on, but I don't know if I would say that one's better or worse. It's just weird that they're different. And then if you look at something that doesn't have any of those features, like just look at some foliage where I actually thought I would see a difference, I don't see a difference at all. And then if we look at some more static imagery mixed in with some motion of our gun, something that doesn't have water or anything, you can tell the color profile is different, which I don't know why, but there aren't really any striking visual differences. And then back to just a cut in the middle of the screen and showing this off. And I don't feel like I can see the seam on this, actually. Like, the cut works pretty well, I think. Like, the left side of the screen and the right side of the screen seem pretty similar in this title. But again, this is not me going super in depth on this feature. Absolutely need to watch a separate video for that. And now on to the next game. This is Battlefield 5. It was already shown on the list, and that's because this is the only game at launch that had ray tracing. In 2019, less than 10 games would have some implementation of ray tracing support. It varied depending on what title. And in 2021, that is closer to about 30 games, which is certainly not the widespread adoption that NVIDIA would lead you to believe, but it's not bad. I'm sure you can look at this list of games and find some stuff that you want to play. But how well does it even run on those games? Now, we had been looking at Battlefield 5, which is among the first titles to have any support. So let's go ahead and look at a much newer title, which is going to be Watch Dogs Legion. Now, after looking at Battlefield 5, which of course came out in 2019, we are going to be taking a look at Watch Dogs Legion. That is what's playing right now. That's what you're staring at. This is a 2020 action adventure game published by Ubisoft, okay? This came out October 29th, 2020. This is a big open world game, so it's going to be kind of hard to run, and it's going to be a modern title. Came out a few months ago, so you're really going to kind of get a grasp on how does the 2060 stand out right now in 2021, and what sort of numbers can you be getting playing this game. Now, thankfully, the big brains at Ubisoft Toronto decided to put in a built-in benchmark. So I'm going to be using those to show off a plethora of settings and be able to do a really in-depth comparison. And it's going to be so easy for me. And in return, it'll be easy for you because you'll be able to figure out all these numbers that I'm going through because it'll all be pretty and not take me any time to get through it. So let's go through it. So here are the settings I have. It is, of course, the 2060. I'm playing in full screen 1080p. Really, the only thing that I've done is I have made the field of view 90, which I don't think will really change much in the benchmark. And then for quality, we're on DX12. The Ultra preset is what I'm running, and it has all of these settings. I haven't tweaked any of this. So all of this that you see is under the Ultra setting preset. Like, I know that this isn't maxed out, but that's how it is on the Ultra. And that's what I'm going to do to have consistency. I am not doing ray traced in this, and I'm not doing a DLSS on this as well. Now, I'm not going to run the whole benchmark, but here's kind of the spot where it gets the most chaotic. As you can see, a lot of stuff's going on. It's changing a lot. This is the benchmark results. This is while I was recording. Now I'm going to stop and show you how it looks whenever I don't record. As you can see, it helped a little bit, but honestly, it didn't really make that big of a difference swapping over to that. So this is just all Ultra is pretty much the only thing that I did. And as you can see, 46 frames per second. This runs pretty okay. It's fairly consistent, as you can see from the graph, which, oh my gosh, I love this graph. Like, obviously there are dips up and down, but for the most part, they aren't like spikes. You can only see a handful of spikes. Like, look, my mouse shows up. Like, here's a big spike, but that's like a max FPS spike. Like, that shouldn't be that bad. And then there's a few spikes where it goes down. But again, these are all like actually pretty good. It's running fine. This is 1080p, max settings. We're not even hitting 60, but it's a big single player game. It might not be that big a deal. And here's something that's super nice that we can go into the settings to see like really what, if you wanted to fine tune your graphical settings. Now, I'm not going to show this next time, but I just want to say that I'm really glad that they have this in here, because you can kind of fine tune where you can make some adjustments. Like if your CPU isn't performing as well, you can see what really uses up your CPU and kind of bump that down, and etc. So now I want to go ahead and talk about using the RTX features ray tracing. So we'll go ahead and go through that. If you could have guessed it, running it with ray tracing makes it perform worse. Whoa, what a surprise. You can see it is dramatically more stuttery than before, which is not great. You can see it definitely hit 8 FPS. There were times where it was hovering around there. That is awful. And the average frame rate honestly isn't dramatically worse than the other one, like playing it without ray tracing. Yeah, going from what, 46 to 25, that's the difference of almost playable to not playable at all for me personally. Like, I don't want to play under 30, especially when the low is 8. I mean, you can look at the chart and see where it really starts to dip, and it is not a great time. But maybe DLSS will save us from that. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Now, I had mentioned before that ray tracing and DLSS has different implementations depending on the title, and this actually has a variety of selections. I only showed off Ultra for ray trace reflections. I'm just not gonna go super in depth into that. That's the worst case. And I'm also going to be doing DLSS on the worst case, which is quality. Performance will look worse, balanced will look better, and quality will look the best. And that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm not going to bother with doing the extra detail, because this is the default. And here we are at the last slide, the last bit of information that we're going to be going over. The RTX 2060 Ultra settings, DLSS on quality mode with ray tracing cranked up. We averaged about 38 FPS, and you can see this really dips low in some points. I think the conclusion I have is not that you need to get a new graphics card. It's you need to tweak your settings. You need to have reasonable expectations. I think a big thing right now is that you can't get a lot of these newer graphics cards that you can push even further. But I think you need to ask, how far do you need to push this game anyway? Like, it ran okay on Ultra just at 1080p without ray tracing and without doing all this crazy stuff to the game. Like, you can definitely get good settings. So using the RTX and DLSS technology is fun, but is it something that's practical? I don't know for the 2060 that it is. And is it something that has a massive impact on what you're doing, and should you have it on? I don't think so in this particular case, but that is all up to you. You absolutely could have a different opinion, and I would love to hear about that in the comments. If you're going to play in anything higher than 1080p, you may have to start trying to look elsewhere, but that's okay. Just like it's okay that I'm going to end the video. See ya.